She can't even cook a proper meal. What exactly does she bring to this marriage besides a pretty face and empty hands? 43 people heard Marcus Chen say that about his own son's wife at the Lunar New Year dinner. 43 people, including my 3-year-old stepdaughter May, who had flour on her cheek from the dumplings we'd made together that afternoon. My name is Lena Zhao. I was 26 years old when I walked into that marriage. And by the time Marcus Chen finished that sentence, the reversal that would silence him forever had already been set in motion. The house on Birchwood Lane was small. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen where the linoleum curled at the corner near the refrigerator. Daniel Chen had lived there for 4 years since his first wife left him, left May, left a stack of unopened medical bills on the counter, and a half-eaten jar of peanut butter in the cabinet. That was the inheritance he managed. That was the life I was delivered into. My family presented it as practical. My father used the word stability. My mother used the word suitable. Neither of them used the word choice. The Zhao family compound where I grew up sat 12 miles away, behind iron gates and a circular driveway that took 40 seconds to walk end to end. I had a room with 3 windows. I had a name that opened restaurant reservations and silenced certain conversations. I also had a father who had made 2 catastrophic business decisions in 18 months, and a mother who believed that a daughter's marriage was a ledger entry, not a life. Daniel Chen was 31, employed as a middle school science teacher, and raising May alone on a salary that left him $200 in his checking account at the end of every month. I know that number because I saw his bank statement on the kitchen counter in the second week. He'd left it there without shame, the way people leave grocery lists. He had nothing to hide because he believed hiding was for people who had done something wrong. I did not love him. I did not know him. I arrived at Birchwood Lane with 2 suitcases and the specific kind of silence that is not peace but refusal. The first humiliation happened at a neighborhood cookout 6 weeks in. Marcus Chen, Daniel's father, a man who wore his disappointment in his son like a second shirt, looked at me across the picnic table and said, loud enough for the Hendersons and the Patels to hear, my son needed a wife, not a decoration. I picked up my paper plate. I moved 2 seats down. I said nothing. The second happened at May's preschool pickup. Another father, someone I barely knew, laughed to his wife as we passed, that's the one who married the broke teacher. Must be something wrong with her family. I buckled May into her car seat. I gave her the string cheese from my purse. I drove home. The third was a phone call from my own mother, conducted at full volume while I stood in Daniel's kitchen, and he stood very still in the doorway pretending not to hear. You're wasting your youth on a man who can't provide. This is not what we raised you for. I told her I had to go. I hung up. The fourth was the Lunar New Year dinner. Marcus Chen at the head of the table. 43 people. The comment about the cooking. The comment about my empty hands. And then Daniel's older brother Vincent, who had driven in from Portland with his corporate job and his contempt, leaned over and said the thing that crossed the line. He said it quietly, which made it worse. He said, you know she only stayed because she has nowhere better to go. A woman like her, clearly the family cut her off. She's just using you, Daniel. You're too naive to see it. May was 3 feet away, eating a tangerine. I set down my chopsticks. I folded my napkin. I looked at Daniel, who was looking at the tablecloth with the particular stillness of a man who has been quietly humiliated by his family his entire life, and has learned to make himself small inside it. I stood up. I said, excuse me, to no one in particular. I walked to the car. I sat in the dark for 11 minutes. And then I made the call I had been postponing for 8 months. Her name was Grace Tao, and she was the only person alive who knew everything. Grace had been my chief legal counsel since I was 22, when I formally, privately, and completely legally assumed control of the Zhao International Holdings Trust, portfolio my maternal grandfather had built over 40 years and placed, in his will, not in my father's hands, but in mine. My father had spent 3 years contesting that will. He had lost. He had then spent the following years pretending, publicly, that I was simply a daughter of comfortable means rather than the sole controlling shareholder of a $4.3 billion private equity structure spanning 6 countries. The arrangement suited me. I had watched what money did to people's faces when they knew you had it. I had watched it in boardrooms and at dinner tables and in the eyes of men who stopped seeing you as a person the moment the number landed. I wanted to know what I looked like to the world without it. I wanted to know what people were underneath. Are you ready? Grace asked. I told her I was. She filed the documentation the following Monday. The press release was embargoed for 10 days. In those 10 days, I made 3 specific moves. I paid off the remaining $34,000 on Birchwood Lane. I did it through an LLC with a name that meant nothing to anyone. Daniel would receive the letter in the mail and think it was an administrative error, and then a correction, and then something he didn't fully understand yet. I funded May's Education Trust. $800,000, structured to release in increments from kindergarten through graduate school. And I drafted a letter to the Lunar New Year table, not a letter I sent, but one I wrote for myself, in longhand, at the curling corner of that kitchen linoleum, at 2 in the morning, while the house was quiet and Daniel was asleep, and May was dreaming something that made her smile with her whole face. I didn't send the letter. I didn't need to. The Forbes announcement broke on a Tuesday. Lena Zhao, 26, confirmed as controlling shareholder of Zhao International Holdings, named to global billionaires list. The photo they ran was 2 years old. I was in a boardroom. I looked exactly like myself. Vincent Chen saw it first. I know because Grace forwarded me his LinkedIn activity. It pulled up my profile 4 times before noon. Marcus Chen called Daniel's cell twice. Daniel came to find me in the backyard, where I was pushing May on the tire swing, and he stood at the back door with his phone in his hand, and an expression I had never seen on him before. He didn't say you lied to me. He said, is this you? I said, yes. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, are you okay? That was Daniel Chen. That was exactly who he was. The neighborhood found out by Wednesday. The preschool parents, the Hendersons, the Patels. My mother called 6 times. My father's attorney called twice. The dinner happened on Friday. Not a planned dinner. Marcus Chen called it a family conversation, which is what controlling men call gatherings they summon but refuse to name accurately. He sat at the same head of the same table. Vincent was there. Several of the same 43 people from January. Marcus began with a recalibration. He used the word misunderstanding. He talked about family and unity, and how he had only ever wanted the best for his son. I let him finish. Then I said, you told 43 people I had empty hands. I want you to understand that I heard you. May heard you. And Daniel has heard things like that from you his whole life. The room was completely still. I didn't stay in this marriage because I had nowhere to go. I stayed because your son is the most quietly decent person I have ever met, and he has been invisible to you for 31 years. I'd like that to stop. Marcus Chen's jaw moved once, like he was locating a sentence that no longer existed. I didn't wait for him to find it. Vincent apologized. Once in a text 2 weeks later. The text said I may have spoken out of turn at the New Year dinner. I read it and set my phone down, and went back to the book I was reading. My mother apologized in the way my mother apologizes, which is by describing how difficult everything has been for her. I let her describe it. I did not argue. My father has not apologized. I have stopped expecting him to. Marcus Chen has been quieter. Not kind quieter. It is not the same thing, but it is a beginning, or it is the absence of a problem, which in certain families is as close to peace as you will get. Daniel knows everything now. He sat with it for a week, and then he sat with me in the kitchen and said, I don't need it, you know. The money. I need you to know that. And I told him I did know. I told him that was precisely why I was still here. May started kindergarten in September. She wore a backpack with a fox on it. She walked through the front doors like she owned the ground under her feet. I lost a version of anonymity I will not get back. I lost the experiment, the clean observation, the unmarked life. I learned that it was already over anyway, because I had stopped observing and started belonging. What I gained: a child who calls me Mama Lena and means it. A husband who looked at $1 billion and asked if I was okay. A self I didn't expect to find on Birchwood Lane, in a kitchen with curling linoleum, making dumplings on a Tuesday afternoon. What I now understand is this: character is the only asset that compounds without losing value. I am Lena Zhao. I am the richest woman alive. And the best thing I own is a tire swing in a small backyard, and the sound of my daughter laughing in it.